So, what's good? What's going on, everybody? This your girl Tiffany coming through here live in the fade. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get started. And this video is about black people did not ask to be in the hood, to be in the ghetto. The reason why, because I'm just tired of the stereotypes and how a lot of time our people get thrown on the bus, right? Because of the fact that they come from a social economic class or an environment where they're not afforded enough opportunities. Okay? And also, I'm getting tired of the mockery about our people. So, I want to say this, black folks, let me tell y'all something. It's not your fault. It wasn't your fault that you end up in the hood. Okay? It's not your fault that you ended up in the projects. All right? It's not your fault. See, our people didn't ask to go to the ghettos. They didn't ask to go into these inner city areas. They were placed in these environments because of the fact they were dealing with racism and slavery. Our people was promised 40 acres and a mule, and they never got it. Our people were dealing with racial disparities where they could not be in certain environments, in certain areas. They couldn't even get certain jobs. Our people do not have access to capital. Our people, collectively speaking, did not come from generational wealth. So it's not our people's fault because they ended up in the hood, okay? You see, we like to sit here, or people like to place the blame on black people that's living in the inner city by saying that they're lazy, they're not trying to do nothing with their lives, they want to be stuck there. No. And see, this goes to show that people do not understand about the hustle culture. People do not understand the economic hardship. Because if you did, you would not even make an argument saying that our people are procrastinators or they lazy and they don't want to do nothing. There's plenty of black folks that's in the hood right now that work their behinds off. But they cannot afford to move up out the neighborhoods because they do not make a certain type of income. And it's so easy to say, well, you need to get a better job that's going to pay more. What is the probability? What are the chances of finding a better job that's going to pay more money to where you can get you and your family out the hood? What are the probabilities? And who's going to help those people to get out the hood? It's bigger than that. See, it's the capitalistic system that we in that caused our folks to have this mentality that, hey, we got to hustle. And also, it makes it hard for our people to move in decent environments. And when they move into these decent environments on a collective scale, on a grand scale at that, the property values go down. The property values go down. Meaning that because we don't have access to capital, right? We are less likely to receive help in our community. We are less likely to have better opportunities to where we can improve our communities. We are less likely to even be able to get loans to buy houses. And when you get loans, there's a lot of interest on it. It seems like people don't understand gentrification, redlining. People just think that this is something that is made up, right? Or we just pulling this off the top of our head and not really trying to put our best foot forward. Now, it's a dog eat dog world. It's a competition. That's what it is. So it's not our people fault because they in the situation. Our people didn't ask for this. And even the black folks that live in the suburbs, guess what? You come from a descendant of those black people who fought to get into those suburban community, okay? You came from those people that came from the hood. That came from the projects. That came from low-income communities. And they had to take all the racial discrimination, name calling, disrespect, just so they could live a better life. People don't realize we have been conditioned to live in the hood. Now, I'm not excusing every behavior that our people do, but we have to understand how we were conditioned. The government told us, hey, this is where you're going to live. This is your environment. Make this your home. And guess what? We had to make it our home. We had to use our creativity. We had to use whatever scrap that was given to us. That's what we had to do. So it's not like you just decided to just get on the bandwagon and just say, hey, we're going to go over here and live in the ghetto and live in the slums or live in the projects and be around a bunch of rats and roaches and lead poisoning and all that. You didn't do that. That's what the scrap was given to you for. And that was the government way of saying that you are just a minority. You are not in the majority. You are inferior. And so you have to be over here. You can't be in the population. You have to be on the outskirts. And you'll be the last people that we have to deal with. So before anybody starts to come off and think we not trying to progress as a people, we have to look at why we not getting to the level where we at. And it ain't that you not trying to do your best or you not trying to do anything at all. You got to look at the economic situation. You got to look at the government system that you're in. And even the black people that are wealthy, majority of those black people ain't come from wealth. And they don't have generational wealth. Majority of the black people that are wealthy, a lot of them are living from paycheck to paycheck. A lot of them didn't get wealth from their ancestors. A lot of them didn't even just build their wealth over time. They end up getting endorsement, contracts. Okay? Multiple stream of incomes. That's what it took. Multiple stream of income. So it's no different from how the person at the bottom is getting money. The only difference is they getting paid a lot more than what somebody else at the bottom is getting paid for. But they get multiple streams of income. Just like the person at the bottom had to make multiple streams of income just to pay their rent, their electric bill, the water bill, and all of that. And another thing I want to say this, and I might get some backlashes, but oh well. As far as gangs, street organization, that's not our fault either. When I say that's not our fault, it's because our people, they form those alliances because they want to be able to have some type of networking. Yes, it brought about crimes. Yes, it brought about violence, drugs and all. But the drugs was planted in our community by the government. But anyways, the whole purpose was to form an alliance, to form a rite of passage. If you come from a broken community environment where you have lack of resources and you don't have some type of cultural stability, you're going to create an organization to form an alliance. That's what you're going to do. You're going to create an organization that's going to form an alliance. And yes, there's going to be the concept of territories and what, as far as like what block you claim, what neighborhood you claim, what set, and all of that. That's going to come with that comes along with it. But if you look at the whole initial purpose, is to form an alliance. So this is what happens when you have a lack of rite of passage. This is what happens. Well, you might say, well, we have churches in our community. Yes, we got a church in our community, but what good is the church? If you got like 4 or 5 churches on the block, right? And you got a pastor that made millions of dollars, he's a multimillionaire or she a multimillionaire, and not doing enough for the members who come from the community of those who are poor, impoverished, what good is a church? Yeah, they might give Sunday dinners, every now and then back to school drive and all of that. But what good is the church if it's not going to put money into the community, the environment they are in? If you're not going to put money into the environment where you can improve housing, right? Or get substantial housing for those who have nowhere to go, or build schools or whatnot, what does that mean? Because to an average person, they look at it as you're just pandering off of them. You're pandering off their emotion, and that's technically what it is. Just like with the mosque. As much as I love my Muslim community, the Islamic community, but what's good is it going to be to have a masjid if the money is not being poured into that environment where the mosque is at? What's good is that going to do for the people? They going to feel the same way, pandering. And even going to the conscious community, all these various schools of thoughts. What good is it to have a conscious community if you're not going to put economic, or if you're not going to practice group economic and try to pull all the resources together to better improve your people? So again, as far as they're concerned, when they look at these various organizations, churches, mosques, and whatnot, they thinking they just pandering off of us. They just pandering. What good is it going to do? And you got people who've been struggling all their lives, and they still feel like they ain't got no hope. And then we got people that turn to drugs, right? And as much as I'm against drugs in our community, but at the same time, I don't pick on individuals who are drug addicts, who are drug dealers, who are prostitutes, or if they doing any type of illegal, so-called illegal activities, right? I don't pick on them, because guess what? I grew up around those type of people. I grew up in an environment where you saw drug dealers, where you saw drug addicts on the streets, where you saw homeless people. You know what I'm saying? where you saw somebody that was a prostitute. Now, I did not understand it at that time period, but as I got older, I said, okay, it made sense. It made sense. I get it. I understand it. I don't agree, but I can acknowledge why they turn into these lifestyles. I had family members that was on drugs. And we know what drugs can do to the individuals and their mindset and how it can affect the family. But again, we can't just blame them for the individual part, right? We got to look at the system playing their part in this as well. Because the system has brought access for our people to get hooked on these drugs, to sell the drugs. The system has put us in a trap, have set us up for failure. So I can't just give the individual blame and not look at the system blame. It's so easy to point at the little guy and say, hey, this is your fault, this, that, and other. And not look at the bigger picture behind it. Again, it's so easy to look at the little guy and say it's his fault for doing this, but not looking at the bigger picture. It's so easy. It's easy to point the finger. But you gotta look at what the cause was of all of this. Just like I can't sit here and blame somebody for being a thug. All day I could say, yeah, you gotta be accountable for what you do. But I can't sit there and point the finger at him and say, oh, this your fault for being a thug. No. It ain't your fault. It ain't just your fault. There was something behind it. There was something that influenced you to become what you are. So we got to look at society that played a role in why this young man became a thug. And then we can't blame this girl for being a hoe or thought. We got to look at society being the reason why she made that choice of being a thought or being a hoe. So let's talk about it, all right? Since we on this subject about ghetto women, right? Let's talk about the multiple incidents that we have seen. We gonna go into Glorilla, for example. So Glorilla made a statement saying that men don't want classy women. They really want ghetto women. And so that made me think, basically what you're saying is that ghetto women cannot be classy. But then I have to realize that she's young. That girl's only like 22, 23 years old. Okay, with that mentality that she has. So maybe in the environment that she came from, she didn't see too many ghetto women being classy, but being straight up ratchet. Okay? So maybe in her mind, that's why she perceived that ghetto women or ghetto females are not classic female. They just ghetto females. And that's not always the case. Because you have women that are ghetto as hell, but they can be very classy too. Or you got women that's so ghetto that you wouldn't even know because they carry themselves with class. They don't have to act ratchet as hell. They don't have to be loud mouthed. They don't have to do none of that. But this is what people perceive about folks from the hood. They think the people from the hood got to be unintelligent, uneducated, unbalanced, all of that. But that is not the case. That is not the case. Everybody from the hood ain't unintelligent. In fact, you'll find out that there's a lot of intelligent people from the hood. Well, damn, if they so intelligent, then why they ain't out the hood? Because it's not that easy. Again, it's a challenge. You don't just wake up one morning and say, well, I'm going to get up out the ghetto and just go into the suburb. It doesn't work like that. It really does not work. And just because you got somebody in the suburb does not mean that they are the most intelligent people. Let's not go off a stereotype. Let's not go off of imagery. I know for a fact because I've socialized with people from the suburbs and people from the hood. And I can tell you this, the people from the hood got way more intelligent than the people from the suburbs. But I just want to read something to y'all real quick, right? All right, so this here is coming from urban.org. It's called The Structural Racism Explainer Collection, right? Causes and consequences of separate, unequal neighborhoods. Watch this. It says, in cities, suburbs, and rural community across the United States, our neighborhoods remain stubbornly segregated along racial and ethnic lines. A typical white person lives in a neighborhood that is 75% white and only 8% African Americans. And then it says, whereas a typical African American person lives in a neighborhood that is only 35% white and 45% African Americans. Moreover, people of color are overrepresented in neighborhoods with high poverty rates, where essential resources like quality schools, full service grocery stores, safe and healthy parks, and reliable transportation are often lacking. Again, and this is structured, all right? This is no fault of our people, okay? This is something that was structured over the period of time. This is something that our people had to go through. And watch this. It says, these patterns are not explained by income disparity or personal preferences. A middle-income black family is more likely to live in a poorly resorted neighborhood with a high poverty rate than a low-income white family. Let me just read that one more time. These patterns are not explained by income disparity or personal preference. A middle-income black family is more likely to live in a poorly resourced neighborhood with a high poverty rate than a low-income white family. Why is that? Because again, it goes back to access to capital. So the low-income white family have a better chance of gaining access to capital than the black middle income family, where they don't have access to capital. So that means you could be a white person and be poor, right? And you can gain access to capital, more than likely. Whereas a black person they got the middle income, they don't have that type of access. And if they become poor, they definitely don't have the access. It says, and although households of all races and ethnicity increasingly say they prefer integration, discrimination against people of color in housing and lending persists, and the effects of past racist public policies continue to be felt. It was structured. This is something that was structured. Okay? This is not by our own doing. We didn't go to the government and say, make it this way. They already had it laid out and printed for us. So it says, how America built separate and unequal neighborhoods, right? America's separate and unequal neighborhoods did not evolve naturally or result from unfettered market forces. Rather, they resulted from plans policies and practices of racial exclusion and disinvestment that primarily target black people and laid the foundation for the segregation of other people of color. So, because of plans and policies and practices, this is what brought about racial exclusion and disinvestment. And please don't talk to me about, oh, well, we got black politicians now, so there's no excuse. But guess what? They don't make things any better either. And with that being said, we have to be careful of the fact that because we got somebody black in position of power that they gonna automatically represent us. That's not always the case. They too are pandering on our emotions, especially if they Democrats. I'm sorry to say, but they are pandering on our emotions. I keep saying this time and time again. There has been so much damage in the cities where it's predominantly black, right? Under the leadership of the Democratic parties. You see the neighborhoods condition gets worse under the leadership of Democratic parties. I'm not making this up. This is somebody who done lived 33 years. And throughout my 33 years of life being on this planet, right? Every mayor was pretty much Democrat. I never heard of a Republican mayor. My 33 years on this planet, I never heard any Republican mayor. It was always Democrats. And the black mayors, particularly, they were all Democrats. And it seemed like every time you get somebody that's a Democrat, right, things get worse. And it seems like they don't cater to the working class or middle class people. They would rather cater to those in the upper class community, right? And those who are entrepreneurs and investors. May I give an example? Yes, let's go ahead. Let's talk about Andrew Young when he was the mayor of Atlanta. In 1990, Atlanta was voted for the Centennial Olympics. So during that time, there was a lot of housing projects in the A. So around 1993, that's when the demolition process took place. Okay? And those demolition process took place just to make room for the Centennial Olympics. It wasn't to bring about improvement to the black community. It wasn't about giving better housing programs. No, it was to make room for the Centennial Olympics. Because why? The mayor and the city saw profit. They saw money. They said, hey, we'll bring the Centennial down here. That's money. That's what they saw. They didn't say, well, we looking forward to better our communities and give better housing. No, I mean, that's the catchphrase they use. They use that to pander the emotions, but in all actuality, that's not what it was about. Then we look at another situation when Shirley Franklin was the mayor. Okay, she was the first African American woman to become mayor of Atlanta. There was a housing project called East Lake Meadow. East Lake Meadow was torn down to expand the golf course. Okay? It wasn't about to improve housing, to make it more affordable But the whole thing in mind was to expand the golf course. And there was a guy, I think his name was Tom Cousin, if that's his name. He was the one that bought up that area just so he can expand that golf course. And guess what? This man was in the upper class. He wasn't in no lower class community. He wasn't in no middle class. He was an upper class man. He was an entrepreneur. So with those examples, it goes to show you that there has not been much improvement for black people under Democratic leadership. However, we have been taught that you vote Democrat, you gonna get the resources. You vote Democrat, you're gonna get great results. If you vote Democrat, these people are gonna represent you. And that's the lies that we was fed into. We were fed into those lies for so many years that we still hold on to them because we looking for hope. But let's go. Watch this. I ain't finished. It says these policies and practices systematically deny black people access to well-resourced and opportunity-rich neighborhoods while denying the neighborhoods where they and other people of color live access to resources and investments, leaving them with failing schools, inadequate services, physical and environmental blight, and high levels of crime and violence. I mean, think about so what, let's go back to Aristotle. Aristotle said this: poverty is the mother of crime and revolution. Poverty is the mother of crime and revolution. This is what Aristotle said. Okay. Now you talking about before common era. All right. During that time period, the Athenian people in Greece, they were under what we call today direct democracy. This is what they were dealing with. So that was one of the reasons why he made the statement, because of what he witnessed. And he said this is what poverty does to people. And you don't necessarily have to be in poverty to commit crimes, but in our situation, right, in our community, most of the crime taking place because of the fact that we have been conditioned into poverty. And poverty is a driven force of people committing crimes. Especially crimes are done by mostly young people. And it's done by adults, but more so young adults and teenagers. They're the main ones committing the crime in our community. So we look at it and say, well, we got to stop the violence, stop the violence, stop the violence. Well, how do you stop the violence? Let's be real. You can't stop the violence. You can't stop the violence no matter what you try to do. Because the foundation of this country was built on violence. And the violence have influenced so many people. And media perpetuates violence. So therefore, this country perpetuates violence and media perpetuate violence. So when you have a perpetuation of violence taking place, that's especially done by media, that's going to be a driving force to cause people to want to commit crimes. So if you're going to say stop the violence, you got to start with the top. You can't just start with the people at the bottom. You can't just say, hey, y'all got to stop killing each other. We got to stop doing this because we know it ain't going to stop. We know it's not going to stop. Well, we got to stop killing each other. We got to stop hurting each other. We got to stop. It ain't going to stop. Just because you run around here with a sign saying stop the violence, that ain't going to, No, if that person is hungry, especially, and they gotta feed their family, then violence may be the only way for them to do so. Thank you, Centavo. Shout out and peace to the chat, by the way. Peace to everybody in the chat. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to the chat. I just want to give the shout out to everybody in the chat room. But holding up signs and telling them stop the violence is not going to change anything. Now, you can tell them, hey, we need to find a way to reduce violence, or we need to find a way to do more productive things. That's the only thing that you can do. But you cannot stop the violence. Because now you got to look at it from a collective scale. What can be done to better improve the condition? As a matter of fact, we got to realize that, hey, we can't do so much. We can only do so much as a people. We can only do so much as a people, right? You can only bring influences. You can only bring inspiration, right? But collectively speaking, society has to come in terms where there has to be a major change altogether. And society itself is not going to do that. Society itself is not going to do that. So now there's no winning situation. And again, if that girl or that boy has to feed their family, right? Then violence is going to take place. If that girl or that boy got to protect their family, violence is going to happen. If they got to protect themselves, violence is going to be the cause. So we have to look at multiple things. Yes, there is a lot of senseless killing. Yes, there is a lot of unnecessary, heinous crimes taking place. But we have to look at other factors why those crimes are taking place. And we have to also look at the justification behind people committing violence. Again, we have to look at the justification behind people committing violence. I mean, come on, somebody. Come on, somebody. So, again, also in this article, right? Watch this. Early in 20th century, millions of black people who migrated from the rural South to the industrial cities of the Northeast and Midwest were constrained to designated neighborhoods by a local zoning ordinance. Restrictive covenants and violence. Racially restrictive covenants legally prohibited African Americans from owning, leasing, or occupying homes in designated communities, providing a legal framework for the systematic segregation of people of color until the late 1940s. Long after the Supreme Court ruled that racial covenants were unenforceable, they continued to be used as powerful social signals to exclude people of color. Right? And it says the federal government also helped create and reinforce patterns of racial segregation and uneven investment in neighborhoods throughout most of the 20th century. Beginning in the 1930s, the Federal Housing Administration refused to insure mortgages in African American neighborhoods. After World War II, the nation's renewed economic prosperity fueled the development of suburban communities, creating new political jurisdictions and school districts. Ongoing redlining combined with local policies and prevailing real estate practices to exclude black families from most burgeoning suburban communities and to deny loans to residents of predominantly black neighborhoods. right? Excuse me. And excuse me. All right. And federal transportation investment also reinforced residential segregation, facilitating automobile access among residents of the growing, predominantly white suburbs while constructing inner city highways that cut through existing neighborhoods, often created physical barriers that block black community access to downtown areas and other centers of economic opportunity. Meanwhile, the development of federally subsidized housing further established starkly segregated living patterns. At its inception, such housing was legally required to be segregated by race, and developments slated for occupancy by black households were built either in black neighborhoods or in isolated, undeveloped areas. So again, this is not our fault. And I wish people would stop making it seem like this is our fault. This is where we want to be. And this is how we want to live. And this is what we choose to live. When this article I just read to you, right, prove otherwise. This come from urban.org. Okay, you can look it up for yourself. Do I need to go any further? And I don't want to hear that, well, that was back in those days. This is a whole new period. This is 2023. Well, there's still the same effect. It's still the same effect. You got to understand, this is generational curse. This is generational pathology. So yeah, a lot of the stuff happened in the 60s and 70s, but guess what? It has an effect on the current time that we in. It has the effect. It's been passed over from generation to generation. Especially when we talk about drugs, we done went through so many eras. We done went through the heroin. We done dealt with the PCP. We done dealt with crack cocaine era. We done dealt with, now we dealing with fentanyl and lean. Now there's a drug called Tranquil or Tranquil that's out. And then now you got to deal with opioid crisis. And who are the people that's more than likely to become victim of these things? The African Americans. We gonna always make up the highest number of people who become affected by these type of drugs. More than anybody else. So this is not making ourselves the victim. No. But this is what it is. It has been this way historically speaking. So again, I'm not here to excuse everything that our people do, but I'm here to say this: we can't place the blame on our black folks for the condition that we are in. We can't do that. That's not gonna fly. That is not gonna fly. Oh, this is our fault because we in this condition. No, it's not. It's the policies. It's the plan. It's the practice that been taking place by this government, by the system that hinder us and hold us back from being able to do what is necessary. From doing what is for doing things that's going to help us to progress collectively. So as long as you got planned policies that will affect a community of people, right? Or a certain group of people that live in the lower income community, then how can they progress collectively? How can we progress collectively as a people? These are the questions we must ask. So I don't care about what some house niggas say. I don't care about no damn Candace Owen, right? I don't care about Clarence Thomas and all these other house Negroes want to say. Because again, they just want to pander to the emotion of white people. That's what they doing. So I don't care about what they gotta say. We just looking at the reality. We looking at what we have to see, what we have to deal with. And this is one of the reasons why most black people don't want to vote Republican, because it creates so many house niggas. But guess what? You also got house niggas that are Democrats as well. So it's on both sides. But you just happen to see more of the house niggerish mentality and attitude from the black Republicans than you do with the Democrats. Because the Democrats, they know how to conceal it. They know how to use words or tone to grab the attention of people. But for those who can read in between the line and they can carefully analyze or ask the right questions, then they actually see the true color and the true nature of these individuals, right? But whereas a black Republican, they just gonna show you exactly they some house niggas. Okay? So that's why most black people don't want to support the Republican parties or those black people that are Republicans. And oftentimes they contradict themselves too. And same way with the Democrats, but yeah, the Republicans are very good at contradicting themselves. Excuse me, y'all. So now, going down to it says the racial segregation. The racial segregation of neighborhoods and the denial of capital to people of color fueled the geographic concentration of poverty, disinvestment by public and private institutions, and neighborhood distress. More specifically, discriminatory policies and practices confining black people for whom the incidence of poverty was markedly higher than for white people. To particular city neighborhoods produce much higher poverty rates in those neighborhoods, right? High rates of poverty high rates of poverty and the flight of capital and essential services, reinforcing the effects of racist policies and practices on neighborhoods. Today, virtually all urban and suburban neighborhoods with high poverty rates are predominantly occupied by people of color, and among households experiencing poverty, white households are much more geographically dispersed than black and Latinx households. That in itself let it be known. So, speaking of suburban poverty, right? We see a very high increase of that, and when you got black folks that live in the suburbs, right? Again, more than likely that's going to be poverty. More than likely, and it won't take long for it to turn into the hood. Because when you have the group of people who have the wealth, the money, and they leave the community, when they leave the community, and you got predominantly black people in those community, the property value is gonna go down. Property values go down, right? Okay, yeah. I mean, that's the game that's being played. Oh, I want to mention something. So I read an article. Oh, it was a while back, and it was a black couple that were trying to sell their home, and they couldn't get the appraisal they wanted, right? So when they showed their face, right, the black couples who were trying to sell the house, the property value went down. But when they had their white neighbors to be the face of the house, the property value went up. And why was that? Systemic racism. So the question was, well, how is that the property value go down for us, but the property value went up? Systemic racism. This is what it looks like. You're not going to get your money worth because of who you are. So, I mean, it's sad we haven't moved forward as a people. And people want to talk about, well, you know, the concept of racism don't exist no more and we got to let that go and whatnot. It still does. It's just done in a different fashion. And then let's talk about affirmative action. Let's talk about affirmative action for a moment. So we heard about what happened with the Supreme Court, right? As a matter of fact, let me just pull up an article on that so I won't be mistaken. Let's pull the article up. Affirmative action. Now watch this. Whew. So it says the Supreme Court's decision to strike down affirmative action means that HBCU investment is more important than ever. So on the the June 29th Supreme Court decision on affirmative action effectively ends race-conscious admission practices in higher education and enrolls 40 years of proceedings. In a 6-3 ruling, the majority used the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, which was created to rectify the inequality faced by Black Americans, to disband the practice of race-conscious admission. This decision in favor of neutrality denies the nation history of racial injustice as Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson stated in her dissent, condemns our society to never escape the past that explains how and why race matters to the very concept of who merits admission. And it says that the decision will most likely result in declines in racial diversity among many public and private post-secondary institutions, which means that some of the most talented students of color will have to pursue a post-secondary degree elsewhere. Historically, Black colleges and universities can help fill this gap. HBCUs have developed talent that other institutions turn a blind eye to, and in the face of the court's decision, society will demand that these schools educate even more students. But for HBCUs to meet that demand, these systematically devalued institutions must receive greater investment. So that goes to show you that basically, as somebody that is a person of color, right, you have to work 3 times harder to go into these Ivy League schools now because they overturned the affirmative action. So more than likely you'll be qualified to go to the HBCUs, but you got to work 3 times harder to go to the Ivy League schools. And the sad part about it is the HBCUs don't get enough funding. They don't gain enough funding. And there has been so many of them that was closed down because they did not have enough money to keep the schools going. But the Ivy League schools, they going to continue to get a lot of funding. And some of the HBCUs are public institutions. Some of them. But even the ones that are private, I mean, you got the Ivy League private schools, right? They still get funded from the government. But altogether, whether the HBCUs are a public or a private institution, they're affected. And they're struggling to stay open. Now imagine if all of them was to close down today. What opportunity will be available for African American students? If all of them was to close down today, what opportunity will become available for those African American kids? Where are they going to go? So they really gonna have to work as hard to get into the Ivy League schools. And the whole purpose of the affirmative action was to protect those black people from being discriminated, from being denied to go to the institutions. That was the whole purpose. But then when you want to bring up CRT, which is critical race theory, everybody get armed in defense. Oh, mostly white people, they get very defensive about that. They get very defensive. When you bring up the critical race theory, they get upset. You start seeing their true colors. But let everybody else tell it. We just want to play victim. We want to play victim. These things ain't really happening. Black people just want to play victim. We got even folks talking about slavery that never exists. Or you got people like Candace Owens saying that black people did not build this country, but hinder this country. Now, if they ain't no buffoon, then I don't know what to tell you. She said black people did not build this country, but they hindered this country. And y'all listen to somebody like that. Okay, give me a break. But then we got some goofy ass conscious niggas getting on here telling folks slavery never exists. Slavery never exists. Where's the boats at? Where's the ships at? Where are you gonna find the ship? Like we got access to go find the damn ships. Do you know it costs money to actually go and look for something? Like we really got the access to say, okay, let's go and find a ship. When there's historical documents out there to prove exactly the events that took place, even science supports this claim by DNA evidence. But we have people who allow these folks to tell them some bullshit. Who allow these folks to say that we were never slaves or our ancestors never was slaves and slavery did not exist. We allowed these individuals to get away with the bullshit. But you know what? That's all I wanted to really talk about for this video. So I've been over here about an hour. So yeah, I'm about to go ahead and just call it a night. But you know, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. I appreciate you guys listening, and thank you to the chat for coming through. So shout out to everybody in the chat. If I didn't get a chance to read your comment, I'm sorry. I was talking, but shout out to everybody in the chat. Now, Barach, I don't know what you got going on over here, bruh. You put we the children of Israel. Hold on, you said we the children of Israel, queen tribe of Yehuda, our people went against Yahshua, the Messiah, started worshiping idols and not keeping the law, statutes, and commandment, we have to repent. You know, I'm not gonna go there with you, bruh. Bruh, you gotta go. Bruh, you got to go. Yeah, you got to go, bruh. That's another thing. I'm not finna play with goofy ass niggas that's coming over here talking about we disobey God's command. They ain't had shit to do with no goddamn God. Okay? It ain't got nothing to do with that shit. The reason why our people was enslaved, you dumb motherfuckers. If you go and actually fucking read and not sit up here and go in this fairy tale shit, the reason why our people was enslaved was because of economic reasons. It did not have anything to do with God or religion. It had something to do with economic resources. And our people was the commodity for that purpose. Slavery is what gave rise to capitalism in this country. Again, slavery is what gave rise to capitalism. Not religion. Not the fact because you believe in a God or not. Hell, it didn't make a fucking difference. You had people who were into African spirituality that were slaves. You had people that were Muslims and that were slaves. And even in some accounts, I'm not sure how true it is, but there were people who practiced Christianity before they encountered the Europeans that were brought into slavery. So it didn't have nothing to do with no fucking God. And if you understand, actually read the fucking Bible, you realize that it ain't nothing more than a bunch of mythology. See, this is how I know that a lot of y'all can't even think outside the fucking box. A lot of y'all can't even think outside the fucking box, bruh. And y'all go along with the bullshit. So I don't know what's worse. Somebody tell you was in slavery because you disobeyed God and you didn't follow God's command. Or somebody tell you that slavery did not exist because they can't find no goddamn ships or boats or whatever. I don't know what's worse. I just know that it's a lot of sick ass motherfuckers out here, man. It's a lot of sick ass people, and that's why I stay away from a lot of bullshit. I stay away from a lot of bullshit because I'm not gonna entertain the dumb shit, bruh. You just dumb, deaf, and blind, and you want to be that way. You want to create some fairy tale to fit your fucking narrative instead of dealing with the actuality. And someone asked, if slavery didn't exist, how do they explain Africans living in Americas? That's a good question. If slavery did not exist, then how do you explain that? Well, we would not be here collectively in America if it wasn't for slavery. Slavery was the main reason why our people end up here in the Americas or the Atlantis. Slavery is the reason why our people end up in Latin America, in South America, in North America, in the Caribbeans. It was slavery. Over there in Europe, in England, it was slavery. Over there in parts of Canada, it was slavery. That's how people ended up. Our folks didn't just say, well, we just gonna ride over here collectively and just chill over here in this land. No, they were forced to come here against their own fucking will. It don't take rocket science to know that. Just do your diligent research. If you could look up some pseudo ass shit, you can go look up some shit online to find out information about slavery. Man, stop playing the fucking games. Y'all niggas bums. Y'all niggas lame for that shit, bruh. Y'all some hoes for that shit. Yeah, I'm in my feelings because I'm tired of that bullshit, bro. That shit is dead. She is fucking dead, man. And it's not even funny anymore. The shit is really sad. It's fucked up. And I'm starting to think that a lot of y'all be trolling. I'm starting to think a lot of motherfuckers, they be saying shit like that. They even trolls or they satire. They using satire to get over people. They using Jedi mind trick to bring about control over a certain group of people to make profit. And that's fucked up. And I don't have no pity for motherfuckers that do that shit. I'm sorry, I have no pity. But anyways, like I said, y'all, I'm done. I'm about to go ahead and get off of here and just relax. And I hope you all have a good one. Be safe. Be productive. May peace and power elevation be to all of you. Until next time, this your girl Tiffany, and I'm logging off. Deuces, and I will talk to you guys later. Thank you. Thank you for your support. All right. Be safe now.